From the Connections Studio Suites, it's Connections. Connections is relationship radio.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're listening to us. It is Connections. I am Melissa Fox, and tonight we are going to be taking on Israel and the Palestinians. Is it Palestinians? Palestinians? Oh, wait, are you going to yell at me? Palestinians?
No, they aren't. They're Palestinians.
Is it Palestine that was in the Bible? Palestinians?
It's their Palestine is the country, or was.
See, we're going to learn so much tonight, but it's going to be a fun night because I am so oblivious. I'm not even sure of United States geography, let alone the world, let alone why people's at war. There are just some things I just don't know. I am Melissa Fox. And with me tonight, as usual, hashtag Lizzie said what?
That's me, boy, with an I and E. Don't leave it off.
Disrespect and vows, and she will not get your message.
Yeah, true.
We got Dr. David Klein.
Turn your head and cough.
Oh, gosh, really?
Yes, I love that one.
I was trying to figure out what he was doing with his hand, cupping,
Yes.
throw globes.
Yeah, smell my finger.
Oh.
We also have Scott Amy. What do you do, man? You're a librarian?
Yes.
He's a librarian.
Yep.
So tonight, along with Dr. Dave and our guest Scott Amy, we're talking about Israel versus Palestine, 100 years of war that's been going on. We also think that U.S. supports Israel. Is that correct? That's what you think?
Yes,
You believe?
most definitely.
Yeah, okay. And we're going to figure out what the heck is going on in the Gaza Strip tonight. I was just reading an article the other day, and it says that Americans really are monolingual.
Yeah, because we got a country that occupies a whole continent.
Right. We don't even need to bother to learn any other language. And now that, we're getting a lot of Spanish in here, even more so lately, people are like, what? Como se llama?
Well, the good news, they can't understand us either. I mean, you realize that's a strength.
Is it? Because I don't think that.
Say rude things they won't know.
I think they do understand us.
They do understand us. They just play that they don't.
Because most other countries they're multilingual.
That's why we need to educate ourselves and learn other languages,
I agree.
especially Spanish. But I think also Mandarin too, because I think at some point we're all going to be Mandarin.
Mandarin's big among the elite. But
Next time I go to China. It's all good.
What's on our plate tonight? Israel versus Palestine. Palestine is the country, right?
Yes.
These are countries.
Territory.
Well,
They're territories.
yeah, it's
Somebody
not
help.
considered a country
Like I said,
by many places anymore.
I'm ignorant about a lot lot of stuff.
Well,
High five, girl. Me too.
There are
Air five.
Air five.
there are countries that do declare it a country, but most, like the United States, consider it a state.
Oh, okay. All right. Scott, what is your knowledge? Why the hell are you here, man?
That's a very good question.
Thank
and
you.
I wish I had the answer. I don't hold the information. I just know where to point.
You're the master of the information.
Oh, wait, you're one of those guys.
No, he
over
actually
here.
labels everything that goes into the library. So
Are you a reference kind of guy?
he's also a history guy too.
Historian.
There you go.
Hysterectomy.
Well,
no.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hysterectomy is
That's
probably
right.
more like it. Okay, so we are learning tonight. Seriously, hysterectomy. I would have liked to have been a history teacher, but I only like one part of history, and that's the World War II brown shirts, Hitler, that kind of that. Other than that, I really didn't pay attention to the 100 Years' War that's going on. And, well, there's been a lot of destruction and battles back and forth. So you're here because you're a fact guy? Okay.
General knowledge.
All right, so give me some general knowledge about the 100 Years' War. I mean, is it religion? Is it rejectionism? Is it a military doctrine that's the problem? What the hell's going on?
I wouldn't say that it is specifically about religion, more like a land struggle.
It's a pretty small strip of land to be struggling over.
And
Yep.
I think colonization is part of the problem because before World War I, this area was all owned by the Ottoman Empire. And they had that area since like the 16th century. So
Kind of like the Indians did here.
Oh.
it's almost a good analogy, though, because when Europe broke up that area after World War I, The British and France kind of partitioned it out with these mandates set up by the League of Nations in the 1920s. Basically, they were supposed to oversee these areas and to help them set up their governments. At the same time, they had Zionism, which is, trying to get the Jews to move back to...
Jews, come back. Your exodus
back to their
was
homeland.
a fail. Come back.
And so when the British started allowing these people to come back and helping them purchase land, they were purchasing land off of the Palestinian people that lived in the area. Well, I say Palestinian people. Palestine is a geographic location, but it was the people that lived there.
Okay.
Today, they recognize themselves as Palestinian, but before they were just part of the Ottoman Empire.
Okay, and Dr. Dave, you didn't glaze over there. You have some knowledge about this.
I know something about it, sure.
More than I do, which isn't saying a lot.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Okay, so the whole thing followed the First World War. Okay, so the Ottomans, that was a very powerful nation. We were at war with them. For those of you that don't know, there were two great wars. The Great War, called World War I, followed shortly thereafter by World War II. World War I, well, the Ottomans lost. Okay, so the Austria-Hungarian Empire disappeared. A lot of this stuff disappeared. And as a consequence, to the victors go the spoils. The British, French, and so on and so forth really didn't care too much to have these Jewish folks hanging around in their countries. So they allowed them to exit. They had to push them someplace, and so they did the Balfour Declaration, which is in the 1920s. So they allowed them to go there. They went there, bought land. They settled it. There were farmers. Rather peaceful lot, all things considered. And things did okay, but for some of the other countries that were broken off, like Syria, well, Iran, basically. Persia is what it was called. And they were headed up by fascists, wouldn't you know it? So these were folks that spun off of Hitler. This was the main problem. So the Grand Mufti, who was the main Muslim cleric in the area, he just had this thing, he's a Hitler file. So he went after these folks, and that was how the whole thing began. And guess what? It's been going on now since 1922. So the wars really began in earnest in 1948 when Israel finally declared itself a country. And then, boom, they were at war ever since. The first thing that happened, they celebrated their independence from the British, by the way, which is kind of how we sort of got interested in these folks to begin with. Got the kind of kindred spirit, so did we. First thing, they ended up with a 10-to-1 war against them, and they won.
Crazy.
And we didn't do anything to support them at the time. So they survived, and now they are the only ally that we have in that region. The only ally. So if you want to know why they're our ally, it's because we're blessed that we have one.
Okay.
We can't count on Turkey.
Well, we have been feeding them weapons for
over about 30 years.
Yeah.
But they feed us intel, and they feed us an awful lot more in return. But rarely in diplomacy. And I had a lot of experience in diplomacy. I carried a diplomatic passport at one point. Nice. And what I will tell you, is that we've gotten back a return for our investment there. But the money we've spent elsewhere, forget it. You can go ahead and you can give the French and British money in the Marshall Plan after the Second World War. Well, guess what? They still owe us money on that. You think we're going to see any of that? No way! Not going to happen.
So, Scott, it's all lining up. Dr. Dave's on the ball.
There are some things that is kind of left out.
Well, a lot of things left out.
Well, but I mean, like in the 1920s, the Balfour Declaration, I think, was in like 1915. The Balfour Declaration was basically saying that we should set up a Jewish homeland. And it happened during World War I.
Happened following, I believe. I would check the facts on that.
I'm going to look it up. I think it's 1950.
I'm going to look it up right now because otherwise we're going to have...
Well, it doesn't matter. That's inconsequential to what we're talking about here. Because like in 1920, when the League of Nations set it up, they set up like the British and the French mandates over in that area after World War I. And it expired May 14th. 1948.
Fair enough, you guys are both wrong. It happened during the war.
What was the date?
You know what I said?
1917.
17.
While World War I was going on, the national...
I was wrong on the year.
It's all good, but as for getting facts straight, okay.
But then it is kind of important.
But then they declared
you come here for your facts.
Then they declared it again in 1926.
The mandate that the British had was Palestine, Israel, part of Iraq, was the north part of Saudi Arabia.
I'm going to need a map.
This is Connections.
You are a god, a God of a special universe where no one thinks of consequences and where those of us constrained by intelligence and common sense are not allowed.
There's no business like show business, like no business I know.
Oh, sing it, Tom!
Everything about it is appealing.
Welcome back to Connections. We are talking about the 100 Years of War. We are talking about Israel and Hamas. And I'm still trying to understand why they fight. Because the Gaza Strip is so small. I mean, it's a tiny little place. With us tonight, Scott Amy, librarian and more factician, historian. With us also Dr. Dave Klein from Stages of Life Medical Institute. He just knows a myriad of stuff. He's just
wealth of knowledge.
He's got certifications and
right.
multiplications and everything.
I got a couple books to boot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you are a doctor, dude. So we were talking about what's been going on in Israel and why we're so with them as the United States. And then I found out from courtesy of Dr. Davis that they're the only ones that that take care of us.
Yeah, I mean, if they are the only ally we've had there for 70 years.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, period. And through thick and thin, even through Obama, they stuck with us. So you take care of your friends, they take care of you in an ideal world.
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of interesting, but just saying, you don't see too many Israelis out there blowing up our schools and blowing airplanes out of the sky either.
No.
So it's kind of an interesting difference in cultures that are at clash because they're in such close quarters. It's economics. It's all about land grab. You're exactly correct. It's about land that basically nobody wanted for hundreds of years. You end up with people coming in. You can say, well, either they bought their way in or they squatted their way in. You call it what you want, but they turned it into a garden. All you have to do is travel a couple hundred miles north to go to Lebanon, and you're going to see just an absolute disaster. It used to be the prettiest place in the Middle East, and it doesn't take very long to move around to find out if you want to find people that are illiterate. You're in the library business. If you want to see some of the most profound illiteracy in the world, go to the Gaza Strip.
Huh.
Okay, period. I mean, these are not... this is not where you're going to go finding scholars. Okay, why? Because they don't value education the way they do martyrdom.
Oh,
and that's
wow.
a real problem. It's fueled by hate, it's fueled by greed, it's fueled by jealousy, and it's fueled by history. And that's just the way that it's going to go.
And
it's far more likely we're going to have the North Koreans, send us a pizza than we are to have those folks, shake hands and smile about it.
So, Scott, you think that the Dr. Dave's pretty spot on what he's saying.
Yeah, he is. But the Palestinians do have a legitimate gripe because during this time of Zionism that we were talking about, the Jewish people came in, was purchasing this land. They were buying it from the British, and the Palestinians that lived there, they were just pushed off their land. They sold their land out from under them.
No, the British did that with a lot.
Yes.
They moved in wherever they went. If you look, I have a globe in the other room, I think from maybe 1956, and everything was British rule, British rule. I mean, you just spin the thing, and it's like they went around and they put their little flag.
We stole countries. That's what you do. That's how you build an empire. We stole countries with the cunning use of flags. I claim India for Britain. And they go, you can't claim us. We live here. 500 million of us. Do you have a flag?
As we look at the historical timeline of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, okay, the 1900s, Zionism, the early Jewish immigration to Israel, 1900 to 1917. Conflict's been going on since then. Mostly Arab, mostly Muslim region, part of the Ottoman Empire, as Scott was telling us, started in 1917, a mandate run by the British Empire. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were moving into the area. That was part of the movement called Zionism. Mostly European Jews escaping persecution came and established their own state in their ancestral homeland, as it were. Later, a large number of Middle Eastern Jews also moved to Israel, either escaping the anti-Semitic violence or because they were kicked out forcibly. Get out. Communal violence between Jews and Arabs in the British Palestine then began to spiral out of control. right?
Yes.
Pretty good.
That was a pretty
Nicely
good summary.
done.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's
Very impressive.
Yeah, for somebody who says they didn't know anything. Jeez, man.
Yeah, we'll have help. Now we kind of glazed over, and maybe Scott was referring to this the Hussein McMahon letters. The British, they mentioned they encouraged the Arab uprising. They were like, "Hey, help us out. We don't like the Ottoman Empire either." So they kind of encouraged that between Sharif Hussein of Mecca and the government of the Hijaz province in Arabia, and then Sir Henry McMahon of the British High Commission. He was commissioner to Egypt, so he comes in. He's like, it was very controversial, by the way, the British being involved in this whole Middle East deal. They had 8 letters that were written back in the day when we actually wrote letters between July 14th of 1915 and the 30th of January 1960.
Hillary erased those emails.
Damn right. Cleaned it? You mean like with pledge?
Yep.
2 men negotiated under terms which Hussein would encourage the Arabs to revolt against the Ottoman Empire, and on that also enter into World War I, which was going on the side of the Allies. I believe that's what we were kind of hinting all around at, but didn't really stab it. In particular, Hussein demanded British recognition of the independence of the Arab areas of the Ottoman Empire, known now as Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, and of course Saudi Arabia. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. How about the grease pencil map of the Sykes-Picot agreement?
That is actually when they divided up the mandates.
Set the border, right?
And in this process, they promised the Palestinian stuff, and they promised the people coming in, the Jewish people, stuff, and then they just kind of didn't do what they said they were going to do. And so,
understand.
Yeah, that caused a problem, especially with the Palestinians, and that's kind of what's going on there today. Mm-hmm. It's like they were pushed off their ancestral land that they had, that's been in their families, and they were pushed to the Gaza Strip area and to the West Bank.
At that point, then everything got kind of screwed up, the political geography of the Middle East, because the Ottoman Empire was kind of referred to as the sick man of Europe. It's just sort of hemorrhaging territory for about a century.
Well, they were pretty darn strong there for many centuries.
But that last century there, they lost control of the European possessions right before the war, because the Allied defeated the Central Powers. They lost its Middle Eastern territories right after that.
Yeah, and they had a lot of internal struggles, just like the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. You have the Shiites and the Sunnis and the Turks.
Did he just swear?
The different factions in the Islam.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Shiites and the Sunnis. And the Turks was heavy-handed in that area, and that's why during World War I, they had those letters, and they were trying to get the people of that area to rise up against the Ottoman Empire.
Right. But when the collapse of the empire, then the Ottoman provinces became Arab kingdoms.
Correct. And
Christian
those,
and Jews got enclaves carved out in Lebanon and Palestine.
Correct. And those factions that were working with the Allies during World War I, we were promising them things like recognition of countries and stuff that didn't happen because they carved them up in mandates. They didn't think that they were ready to start their own countries yet because they had so many internal problems that's why they created this mandate until 1948 to help them try to build coalitions and these separate little countries. So they didn't just let them go.
And they've gotten along ever since.
This is Connections.
Thought about selling your home lately? Or want a home value report? Jameson Properties can help. Just contact Barry Jameson. His team has been servicing Central Florida for over 25 years. You can also search homes for sale at his website at barryjameson.com. That's BARRYJAMIESON.com. Jameson Properties has over a 97% success rate getting homes sold. Experienced, honest, and reliable. Give Barry a call. 407-876-2730. Or contact him at barryjameson.com. Call him now. You'll be glad you did.
Nunez Productions is a full-service audio and video recording and editing suite.
They offer voiceover, English to Spanish dubbing, transcriptions, translations, mixing, and mastering.
Does your business need new clients? Call Nunez Productions today and let them help you open the floodgates.
Offering services and products bilingually adds instant customers.
And that means instant cash.
Y por supuesto, se habla español. Visit NunezProductions.com today to get a free quote on your project.
That's NUNEZ Productions.com.
Breakfast time! I made your favorite.
Look, it's a manwich.
That's a manwich.
More than a meal.
What's wrong with the stupid people? It's like they're idiots or something. Big fat friggin' dumbass idiots.
Connections, broadcasting live every night at 10 Eastern.
Hey. Welcome back, people. How are you? Tonight we're trying to figure out what's going on with the Israeli and Palestinian fight over there at the Gaza Strip. And with us, we've got Scott, Amy, we've got Dr. Dave, we've got Lizzie from What's Our Pete, and myself, Melissa Fox. To me, it's like the Irish and the English fighting over religion. It's stupid.
It's very sad what's going on, and it's easy for us to kind of disassemble ourselves from that. But if you put yourself out there a little bit, you can do it right on Facebook. There's places that are Israel friendly and
pro-Israel,
Palestinian friendly. So you can go to each one of these groups.
Team Edward or Team
or both. No, you go to both, and that way you get both points of view instead of just looking at one or the other.
Okay.
Now, what I have noticed is that there's a lot more Palestinians getting killed than Israelis.
It must be want to even the score. So that's what's making the whole thing happen, is trying to even the score.
Well, the score is not even close. I mean, Israel's they're killing them 10-1, and that includes children. 2,300 children have died at the hands of the Israelis.
Over how long of a frame?
18 years.
Okay.
I seen a video the other day, and these are the things that people usually will turn away, don't want to see for obvious reasons. And I'm just going to put it right out there. Stepping on babies that are no longer alive. And this is going on right now there. This is the stuff they're doing. It's brutal. They're throwing grenades and bombs at these people while they're trying to run with their children in their hand. It's a very awkward thing to look at. But again, we can easily detach ourselves from it because, we live in a first world country and we just see these things on the news, or we don't. We usually choose not to watch those things. So you only really see what your confirmation bias kind of lets you see. So if you want to see the Israelis' point of view, all you really got to do is watch American TV. It's a little harder to find Palestinian information and getting their point of view because we don't publicize that. We have no reason here to publicize that. Doesn't do us any good.
Ever watch CNN?
No.
Dr. Dave from the Chief.
I do not.
No, CNN. I'm not a big CNN fan either, but yeah, they really work on the leftist causes to include the Palestinians. So yeah, it's like anything else.
I noticed recently, before I really never saw it much on the forefront, but I've noticed Bernie Sanders, throwing it out there a lot recently about the Palestinians.
He's a leftist.
Well, there's a reason for it, is because, like I said, 96% of their water right now is bad. They're just waiting to all have disease and die, and they're begging for help. Every time they try to make an agreement, they keep on pushing it further and further, and Israel's taking it over. Everybody just sits back and watches it because that's our ally.
Well, I don't know. Israel owned the Gaza Strip and then gave it to the Palestinians to do with it as they wish.
Right.
Okay, and they haven't done much with it.
But have you seen how big the Gaza Strip is?
Gaza Strip is a fairly large piece of property, all things considered, when you're looking at the total property.
They've taken, I think, 93% of their land since 1948.
Scott?
Bought and paid for.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they confiscated it. What Pete is saying isn't inaccurate. I mean, these things are happening over there.
Sure.
But when they've gotten it because the Arab nations attacked Israel, and Israel beat them back and conquered all this land. Well, I don't know about conquered, but moved the battle lines to envelop some of these countries that have attacked them. And so Israel's like, oh, we should keep this. And that's what happened with the Gaza Strip.
The Golan Heights, the West Bank. Well, but actually, they owned the West Bank until it was taken from them in 1948.
Correct.
Okay, so they owned it, they lost it, they got it back.
Who can even remember why you started fighting in the first place?
She knew that if I joined my band, she would
So that these lines of battle move backward, back and forth. And guess what? You have to make a decision in this country and elsewhere what side you want to be on. Now, I'll tell you what. I went to war one time with Iraq, right? First time around, Gulf War. But all the while, we're out there trying to fight in one place. And what are the Iraqis doing? They're sending missiles into Israel. Israel isn't even involved in the damn thing. Okay, that's just the way these things work. So if you want to sit out there and take some hits from the rockets, marvelous. They're not coming from benevolent people. Hamas is doing this stuff. Who's paying for it? The Saudis. No, the Saudis are paying for it, and the Iranians are paying for it. It's nuts.
The Saudis actually.
Why aren't they buying them desalination plants? If you're worrying about water, why don't they give them water plants? I mean, these are not poor people in Saudi Arabia.
And the sad part of it is these countries like Iran that are supporting Hamas because they don't have a specific set up government for this. I mean, we say, Palestinians
it's a
are a country. Exactly. And so they don't have, water resources or anything. And these people that are sending money to Hamas is doing a lot of public assistance to these people, but they're not investing, they're not building anything to help them. They're not building schools. And so these people are very uneducated. And then they say, we'll pay you if you go blow yourself up. And
marvelous.
Oh, that's a great deal.
In Vietnam, we had kids running into our between our trucks in convoys and pitching grenades into the deuce and a quarters. It doesn't matter. Adult, child, doesn't make any difference. You're going to end up eating it. So kids die in war, and that's just that is an unfortunate fact. But who's doing the rock throwing, the Molotov cocktail throwing, and who's blowing themselves up at the checkpoints?
Well,
the Israelis aren't going in there doing it.
Blowing yourself up at the checkpoints, yes, they are doing that.
What about the Twin Towers in New York? When did that happen? Okay,
that wasn't the Palestinians. That was Saudi Arabia.
No, it's all flavors of the same milkshake.
I don't think one person came from Iraq on those airplanes. Out of all the people that they included as the 9/11 terrorists, not one of them was Iraq.
Yeah, and not one of them was a Baptist, not one was a Catholic, not one was a Hindu or Taoist either. The upshot of it is that you have an underdog situation there that they've continued to win for the past 70 years.
Well, I hate to even say this name, but I have to.
No, Hitler.
I have to throw this out there. Israel and the Rothschilds go hand in hand.
Damn
you and your Rothschilds.
I'm sorry, I had to throw that out there.
Conspiracies being what they are.
I have a right to. I am an American citizen, and I demand to see Alice Sutton. Alice Sutton?
Man, the sky is a restraining order waiting to happen.
That's it. We're going down now.
I knew it was coming.
Thanks, Pete.
I knew it was coming.
Nice.
It's the Illuminati.
Right. And don't let me start it on the flat earth. So, Scott, what about the Arab Revolt? That would be just between 36 and 1939 against the British Mandate. What happened there? How did they start resisting?
During this time when you have the Jews coming in, they're settling in there where the Palestinians are. And, this is the basics of why the Palestinians are very upset. You have all these Jews coming in and they have resources to a place where there's poor people. And so there's a separation of the people that have money, and then there's a separation, of the poor Palestinians.
Are you saying that the ones that immigrated there were able to come in with all kinds of cash?
Not all kinds of cash, but they were wealthier than the people that were living there.
It's kind of like what we did in Orlando. We start pushing people out of poorer neighborhoods. And
no.
They get upset about it. Happened in Washington, D.C. when I was growing up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you go in there and you buy the house from somebody and you fix it up, and they get irritated because now they've got to go someplace else.
Oh, baby, this is beautiful. We got a chandelier hanging up here, kids outside playing. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We ain't got nothing to wear. I really love them. This is really nice. Too bad we can't stay, baby.
That's the nature of movement. That's the nature of herds. They move around. But they weren't pushed out.
They weren't physically pushed out, no.
But, I went to Spain. I went to Barcelona. Barcelona is a really, really cool town until you start looking around some of the older neighborhoods and you start seeing what their ethnicities were and where did these people go.
Right. What happened to
1492, they were all thrown out. Okay, diaspora,
Damn
was what
British.
happened. No, that was the Spanish. Okay, the French had theirs, the Poles had theirs, the British had theirs. So the whole Zionism thing was, hey, let's find some place where they can't push us out, and that's the explanation for the tenacity of the people in the Middle East. They've got no place else to go.
This is Connections.
My man's ED is destroying our sex life.
I know just how you two must feel, but Bob and I went to stagesoflife.net, and Dr. Dave Klein has saved our marriage. Try Stud Mix.
By reducing the degradation of testosterone to estradiol and DHT, testosterone levels go up, estrogen levels go down, and things improve in your bedroom.
It takes a couple of weeks to get things going, but now my man is back better than ever.
Stud Mix is an intelligent approach to giving you that boost that most men need.
Go to stagesoflife.net and try Stud Mix now.
But now I want to talk about another thing that's on everybody's mind today, and that's your stick-ups and your skyjackets, which, if that was up to me, I could end the skyjackets tomorrow. All you got to do is arm all your passengers. They just pass out the pistols at the beginning of the trip, and then pick them up again at the end. Case closed.
Vote for me, and I'll set you free. Rap on, brother. Rap on.
Welcome back to Connections, where if I don't make you laugh or enjoy the music, I'm not doing my yumming. Temptation, symbolic confusion. You liked that one, didn't you, Dr.
Love
Dave?
it. Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a very underappreciated Temptations tune, considering its social commentary that gets them into trouble. Isn't it? That's what gets us into trouble, too. I'm Melissa Fox, along with Point Sir Pete. Lizzie said what? Hello, Lizzie.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm on tonight. Yay.
Yeah, you're there. She's at minus 50 right now.
No, I'm at minus 49, thank you, because they had a very intelligent conversation I was joining in on.
Well, you did join in, yeah. You
Yes,
could chip one back off that, okay.
So I smiled and nodded.
You did smile and nod, and I thought it was very impressive. Dr. David Klein is with us tonight from Stages of Life Medical Institute. Sir?
Turn your head and cough, please.
Tonight we'll be talking about what the heck is going on with the Israelis and the Palestinians, and not even a week and a half ago, funerals for dozens of Palestinians took place. It was one of the bloodiest days in the Gaza since, about 4 years. You had 60 people, including an 8-month-old baby, were killed. The Israeli troops just opened fire, live ammunition, tear gas, all this along that Gaza-Israeli border. And tensions are running higher. More violence is expected. It just keeps going on. Why are the Palestinians protesting right now?
Well, because they're starving, they're thirsty, they're living in horrible conditions, they're trapped.
Scott, yes?
Well, it's also the 70th anniversary of the formation of Israel, so the demonstrations that were going on happened during that time. So,
okay,
and they had planned them for a week-long.
Right. I mean, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
First of all, as we've been discussing tonight, the violence in Israel and the Palestinian territories.
It was well known that they were going to be protesting at this time.
Right.
Guns or butter. You spend your money on
guns or butter,
or you feed your family.
Fair enough.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So the last major confrontation, as I said, was back in 2014. Israel tried to stop the firing of rockets by militants in Gaza, and that was the Operation Protective Edge. It was a 50-day conflict, resulting in the death of 2,251 Palestinians, and a lot of those, almost more than half, were civilians, and 73 Israelis, 6 of them civilians as well. So you see the big number difference. You have 2,200 Palestinians, 73 Israelis dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an extermination.
Then you got 1,014, 1,462 civilians out of that Palestinian number that died, whereas 6 out of the 73 Israelis they died were civilians.
And this is terrible, but when we went to war in Iraq, let's see, we killed, 500,000 people and lost 100?
Yeah, exactly.
114. It all depends upon what your perspective is going to be and how you use those numbers. It just really all depends on what side of the knife you're on. When are you going to say, okay, enough's enough?
Child, please.
And not so much. There are people out there that are not happy unless they're unhappy. We all know them.
He's an ass. And he's dumb. He's a dumbass.
Victimization nonsense. They're given millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. If you wanted a desalination plant, you would have done like the Israelis did and built it. It was built in.
We took care of them pretty good, too.
No, we did. Not in 1948, not in 1956.
But at that point, the British and the French.
No, nobody took care of them. This was all this. No, not so much. Okay, no.
Because we needed their help.
Everyone's shaking their head but you, Pete.
No, look, we needed their help.
We needed their help
we
in
needed their help
1968
to get the Suez Canal from Egypt.
Right.
That's
Well,
when 1973 came around.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
even in
Building up.
1956, though, the
30
United
years.
States were actually upset at Israel for attacking, if you're talking about the Suez Crisis in 1956.
Was it Eisenhower?
Yes,
Yeah.
Eisenhower was very upset because it almost started a nuclear war.
Shall we play a game?
There's just so much going on, and it's so hard to understand.
So,
Yes,
Scott, explain why they had the protests this week.
Lizzie's
and
trying to
what's led into
understand
it.
what happened on
It's
May
the
17th.
70-year anniversary of the birth of the state of Israel.
Okay.
Okay, so they believe that that land was taken from them, and they are protesting it. You know, Pete brought up a good point that these people are dying by, a large amount opposed to the Israelis. Hamas, in their charter, the whole reason why they exist is to destroy Israel. That is their mission. That is their goal.
I love it. I love a people with a goal.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's in their charter. I mean,
It's in their charter.
Yeah.
Yes,
And they are funded by Iran. And so Hamas, they do support the Palestinian people. They do give them money. They do help them. But they're very poor, and a lot of their money goes to terrorism. In these protests, they encourage the citizenry to go to where these protests are. They want them to show up because they want to incite violence.
Look, your wife is going to be taken care of, and your child will be taken care
Exactly.
of. But you got to strap a bomb on your back. Well,
But it's
either
politics.
way, we're all three going to die.
Do they
if I
not
don't do
promise
this, I might as well.
the 72 virgins and
I
stuff
don't know
too?
about all
I mean,
Nah.
but I mean, is there a religious?
What good is that
But
going to do?
here's
If they
the
stay
problem.
virgins,
It's
nice.
just like if the United States and you have
You're not
like
making any sense.
somebody that like the Indians
Votiva.
and the Indians want their
Tighten that thing
ancestral land back. If the Indians wanted their ancestral land back,
I believe that's
and they
Native
start,
American, sir.
but if they wanted their ancestral lands back and they started doing like blowing people up here in the United States, we wouldn't stand for that. We would go in there and squash it.
Yes.
Israel's no different. So when you got all these Hamas terrorists, they're not going to come out and say, "Hey, I'm a terrorist." They're going to get into with their citizenry. So when Israel sends in their troops, there's going to be crossfire. There's going to be
death by cop.
Yeah, it's going to happen, and Hamas
See, where-
sets that up.
Death
Where
by
there is
cop.
there is a lot of perception here because the Palestinians, not all of them are with Hamas either.
Correct.
Oh, I'm not here with these fellas. I got a pig in competition over at the livestock pavilion, and I am going to win that blue ribbon.
So you have a lot of them that are just
But that's
just
why I
porn
said
hunters.
civilians dying. as
Most of them
opposed-
aren't siding with Hamas.
Well, the other thing is
Right.
they don't wear uniforms. So,
Correct.
what are you going to do? It's kind of like the old death from above, like, kill them all and let God sort them out.
Right.
What do you do? They're going to be out there burning the American flag. Death to America, death to America. Marvelous. What do you say? Smile when you say that? It pisses me off, too. We're a very generous country. We've protected these people from God knows what influences over the years, and this is what you get back. You get blown up. You get your aircraft hijacked.
Well,
Okay,
that's
you
what
get
I'm
your
asking.
schools shut up.
Well, we've been protecting Israel. We haven't
But the
been
Israelis-
protecting the Palestinians.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, I think we kind of
I
sort of
think
did
we
that.
help Israel
Let me
take
ask you a
out
question,
the
though.
Palestinians.
Let me ask you a
when we
question.
protected Kuwait?
If the U.S. gave money to the Palestinians, what do you think they would do with it? Do you think they
The
would
same
build
thing
schools,
is the
or do you
same-
think they would buy more rockets?
I think you need a better plan than to just give money. You can't just give money to Israel, and you can't just give money to the
So
Palestinians.
what are we supposed to do? Go in and build
Arm them
hospitals
both.
and schools because they are chanting death to America? Do you
as-
think
Even
anybody
better,
would want to go in there and do
as
that?
Americans, we really, I don't know if we can do anything at this point. It's so out of control.
Yeah.
It's been out of control, but so you send missionaries over there to help out, and what do?
Kill the
They
missionary.
kill them, or they hold them hostage.
I think
it's marvelous.
I think it's pretty simple. You cut the place in half, say this is your half, this is your half, get over it. If you have a problem with it, then you deal with the big boys.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of all who threaten it.
That's how you deal with it. But we can't do that because then we'd be messing with religion. Obviously, Israel wouldn't stand for that. The Palestinians have tried over and over to try to make some kind of agreement, but Israel is...
You've got to be kidding me. 4 times in history, Israel proposed a two-state solution, and every time the Palestinians rejected it.
Well,
every time. In 1948.
It's a solution that was good for Israel. It's a solution that was good for the United States. It's a solution that was good for the Christians. It wasn't a good solution for the Muslim world. It wasn't a good solution for the Palestinians.
Poor Muslims, they own an awful lot of territory in the Middle East that they're not willing to share with those poor Palestinians.
Yeah, because they're different countries. It's the same way we treat Mexico. I mean, they're right next to us, but we still don't want them here.
We don't shoot them when they cross the border.
Yeah, we do.
Wow, people. Okay, so I think we're going to have to agree to disagree at this point.
No kidding.
Laughing time is over.
There you have it, boys. Case closed.
You've been listening to Connections. Find tonight's show and replays of our past shows on ConnectionsShow.com.